I thought I was doing the right thing when I told my boss his wife was cheating. But instead of thanking me, he fired me. And that's when everything in my life began to unravel. At first, I thought it was just heartbreak and betrayal. But the deeper I dug, the more I realized my boss's silence wasn't about protecting his wife. It was about hiding something much darker. And by the time I discovered the truth, I wasn't just caught in their secret. I was their secret. If you think you can trust the people you work for, watch this until the end because I thought I could too. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I wasn't supposed to be a witness to something so personal, something so intimate. I was just doing my job, wrapping up the last files of the day, when I saw them. Through the glass of my boss's office, I caught the glimpse of his wife, with another man. I shouldn't have looked. I shouldn't have even been there. But the door to his office had been slightly ajar, and the voices had been muffled at first. But then, the silence was broken by a soft laugh. It was her laugh, the one she used when she thought no one was listening. It was meant to be playful, flirtatious, but it sent a shiver down my spine. I didn't want to believe it at first. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was just imagining things. But then, I saw the way she touched him, the way their bodies leaned into each other, like they were more than just a couple. And then came the kiss. My heart sank. I felt my pulse in my ears, my hands trembling as I backed away from the door. I had seen something I shouldn't have, and now I was stuck with it. What could I possibly do? How could I stay silent when I knew the truth? My boss, Richard, had been kind to me. He'd taken me under his wing when I started at the company. He always said, "Loyalty is everything, Emma." I believed him. He trusted me, and I respected that trust. But now I had a decision to make. Should I tell him what I saw? Should I expose his wife's betrayal? The next morning, I could still feel the weight of the secret pressing on me. I wrestled with my conscience as I sat at my desk. I knew what was right. I had to tell him. He deserved to know. But as the hours passed, my mind shifted, questions clouding my judgment. Would I be betraying his trust by revealing something so personal? Would he even want to know? In the end, I couldn't ignore it. I had to speak up. That afternoon, I took a deep breath and walked into his office. He was sitting behind his desk, going over some reports. I could feel my hands growing clammy as I stood there, unsure of how to begin. "Richard, my voice faltered. He looked up, a faint smile on his face, his gaze warm. But I knew what I had to say would shatter that warmth. "I saw your wife with someone. I saw them together. They were—" I hesitated, unsure of the words to describe what I had witnessed. "They were having an affair." The room was silent for a moment. He didn't react at first. His eyes were unreadable, distant. Then he did something I didn't expect. He smiled. "Thank you for telling me, Emma," he said quietly, his voice lacking any real emotion. "But I don't need you to be the one to tell me about my personal life." I was stunned. My heart pounded in my chest, and I wasn't sure if I was relieved or disappointed. Wasn't he angry? Wasn't he going to confront her? But instead of responding in anger, he just dismissed me. Later that afternoon, the surprise came. I was called into HR. My termination papers were already waiting for me on the desk. "We've had to make a difficult decision, Emma," the HR manager said, her voice distant, as though it wasn't personal at all. "You're being let go, effective immediately." I was shocked.
But why?
I hadn't done anything wrong. I had only told him the truth. I could barely keep my composure as I gathered my things, my mind racing, trying to understand what had just happened. I left the office that day feeling like I had been hit by a truck. The silence was deafening. But what stung more was the realization that Richard's reaction wasn't what I expected. He didn't confront his wife. He didn't express anger or shock. It was as if he already knew. The days after I was let go were some of the strangest I had ever experienced. My world felt like it was spinning in slow motion, each moment stretching out longer than the last. The pain of losing my job, the one I had worked so hard for, was bad enough, but it was the unanswered questions that kept me awake at night. Why did he fire me? I thought about it constantly. I had only told him the truth. I didn't get why he didn't act the way I imagined he would. He wasn't angry. He didn't even seem shocked. It was like it didn't matter to him at all. For the first time, I started to wonder, did he already know? I tried to tell myself I was overreacting. It was just a workplace drama. I'd lost my job before, I'd move on. But something about the whole situation gnawed at me. There was a feeling in my gut, a feeling that there was more going on beneath the surface. The way he had responded, the way he brushed me off with such an unnatural calm. It didn't sit right. I needed answers. The thought of letting it go and moving on wasn't an option. It wasn't just about me anymore. The more I thought about it, the more certain I became. Richard was hiding something. Something I hadn't seen. A few weeks passed and I found myself working at a new company. It wasn't the same as my old job, but it helped to distract me. I threw myself into the work, trying to bury my thoughts of Richard and his wife. But the more I worked, the more my mind wandered. The situation felt unfinished. The questions kept piling up. Why had he fired me? Why was he so detached from the whole affair? I couldn't help but wonder if I was missing something big. The silence surrounding his reaction was so loud, it rang in my ears. He hadn't even mentioned the affair. Not a word. And after everything I had done, after being honest with him, this was how he responded? One evening, after a long day at my new job, I decided to drive past Richard's house. I didn't know what I was expecting, maybe to see some sign that things were more complicated than I had realized. But what I saw shook me to my core. There, in the driveway, was his wife's car. But that wasn't what caught my attention. What did was the figure standing beside it. A man. The same man I had seen her with. They were talking. No. Not just talking. They were laughing. She was leaning into him, her hand resting on his arm. It wasn't just a moment of comfort between two people. It was the way they looked at each other. The same look I had seen the night of the affair. I had to confront this. I had to know what was really going on. The next morning, I went back to Richard's office. This time, I wasn't going to stay silent. I needed him to explain himself. There was too much at stake now. My own peace of mind, my dignity, my sense of what was right. Everything was on the line. When I entered his office, the mood was different. His usual coldness was gone, replaced by an air of discomfort. Richard didn't even look at me at first, but when he finally did, it was like he knew exactly why I was there. "Emma," he said, his voice low, almost tired. "I didn't expect you to come back." "I need to know why," I demanded, my voice shaking with frustration. "Why did you fire me? Why did you silence me when I told you the truth about your wife?" His gaze shifted, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Because I didn't need you to tell me, Emma. I already knew." I blinked, stunned by his words. You knew?" His lips twitched, almost as if he were forcing himself not to laugh. But his eyes, those eyes, had an emptiness in them, like there was nothing left to say. "I've known about the affair for months," he continued, his tone casual, but something dark lingered in the air. "But it wasn't about the affair, Emma. It was about you. I didn't want you involved in this. You were getting too close. You were digging around where you didn't belong." I took a step back, confusion rising inside me. "What are you talking about? Why would I be involved? I didn't do anything but tell you the truth." Richard's face darkened. "The truth? The truth isn't always what you think it is, Emma. There are things happening behind the scenes that you don't understand. Things that have nothing to do with you or your morality." The room was suddenly too small, the air too thick. My heart pounded in my chest. It felt like everything I thought I knew about the situation was crumbling around me. "And now?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, folding his arms, as if weighing whether to say more. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he spoke. You were just a pawn in a much bigger game. A game you didn't even realize you were playing. I left his office that day feeling like I had just been dragged into the center of something I could barely comprehend. A game? What did he mean by that? How was I involved in any of this? And if I was just a pawn, what exactly were the stakes? The days that followed were a blur of confusion and frustration. Richard's words haunted me. You were just a pawn in a much bigger game. What did that mean? How could I, an ordinary woman just trying to do my job, be part of something that sounded so manipulative? I kept replaying our conversation in my head, trying to understand what he hadn't said. He dismissed the affair so easily, as though it wasn't even worth confronting. And then, that cryptic comment about the game. I had to know more. I couldn't just walk away from this. I couldn't let go of the feeling that I had been swept into something that was far beyond a simple affair. A few weeks passed, but the more I tried to move on with my new job, the more things didn't add up. My new colleagues were nice enough, but nothing felt real. Every time I walked into the office, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, that I was being watched. It was as if the shadows of my past were following me. The worst part was when I started noticing strange things. At first, they were small, just little anomalies that didn't seem to make sense. My office phone would ring, but when I answered, there was no one on the other end. My email inbox would have random messages from unknown senders, with subject lines that seemed out of place, phrases like, "The truth is closer than you think." It was as if someone was trying to send me a message. But who? And why? Then, the unthinkable happened. I walked into the break room one afternoon, and there was a man sitting at the table. I didn't recognize him, but something about his presence made the air feel thick, like the walls were closing in. He didn't even look up when I entered. He just sat there, his fingers drumming slowly on the table, his eyes fixed on the floor. I didn't think much of it at first, but as the days passed, I kept seeing him, always in the background, never directly engaging with anyone. I began to wonder if he was following me. Every time I'd leave for lunch or return from the bathroom, he would be there, waiting. It felt deliberate. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I walked up to him one day while he was sitting alone. "You're watching me, aren't you?" I asked, my voice low, but sharp. He didn't flinch, didn't even look up. He just smiled. "I'm not watching you," he said, his voice smooth. "But you're watching me. That's why you came here, isn't it? To figure out what's really going on." I froze. He knew. He knew exactly what I was thinking. "How do you know that?" I demanded. He leaned back in his chair, his eyes finally meeting mine. There was something chilling in his gaze, something calculating. "I know because I've been following you," he said, matter-of-factly. "But it's not just you, Emma. It's Richard, too. All of you are tangled up in something much bigger than you realize." I didn't know whether to be terrified or intrigued. "Why?" I asked, barely able to whisper the word. "Why me? Why Richard?" He sighed, like he was about to explain something that should have been obvious. "Because you're all part of the plan. And now that you're involved, you can't get out. No one can." His words hit me like a ton of bricks. What plan? What game was he talking about? And why was I still in the middle of it? Before I could ask anything else, he stood up. "You'll understand soon enough," he said, and just like that, he turned and walked out of the break room, leaving me standing there, shaken and confused. The next few days were a blur. I tried to focus on work, but I couldn't. The man's words echoed in my head, over and over again. No one can get out. What was I tangled in? What was Richard's role in all of this? And why had he been so calm when I told him about the affair? It was like he already knew everything. The more I thought about it, the more it seemed like everything was connected. The affair, my firing, the man watching me, and Richard's strange behavior. It was like I had stumbled into a trap, and now there was no way out. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, my mind racing with thoughts of Richard, his wife, the man in the break room. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to confront Richard again. This time, I wasn't going to walk away without answers. I showed up at his office, just as the last of the evening light faded outside. The building was empty, save for a few employees finishing their work. When Richard saw me standing in his doorway, his expression didn't change. He wasn't surprised, just resigned. "You're back," he said softly. "What do you want now?" "I want answers," I said, my voice more determined than I had ever been before. "You told me I was a pawn in a game. You fired me for no reason. Now there's someone following me. What the hell is going on, Richard?" He looked at me for a long moment, and then slowly, he sat back in his chair. His hands folded on his desk, his fingers tapping thoughtfully. "You've already seen too much, Emma," he said, almost tiredly. "But it's not my secret to tell. It's not just about the affair or about you. This has been in motion long before you even walked into my office." He leaned forward slightly, his eyes narrowing. "But now that you've seen the cracks, there's no going back. You've crossed a line." I could feel the weight of his words settle on me like a stone. There's no going back. What did that mean? What was going to happen now? The moment I walked out of Richard's office that night, the air felt heavier than usual, thicker, darker, almost suffocating. London's streets were damp from a recent drizzle, the reflections of city lights smearing across the pavement as I hurried home. But even as I wrapped my coat tighter, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't walking alone. Every sound behind me felt louder than it should have been. The soft scuff of footsteps, the whisper of tires against the road, the flicker of a street lamp that seemed to dim as I passed. My heart raced. I turned once, twice, but there was no one. Still, I felt it, the same eerie presence that had haunted me before. I wasn't imagining it this time. When I reached my flat, I bolted the door and leaned against it, my chest heaving. My phone buzzed in my hand. I expected it to be a friend or maybe one of my new coworkers. But the number was hidden. A voice spoke the moment I answered. "Emma, stop asking questions." I froze. It was calm, male, and eerily familiar. Not Richard. Not the man from the break room. But someone who knew me. "Who is this?" I demanded, but the call went dead. My heart pounded so violently I could barely hear myself think. Whoever it was, they were watching me. They knew what I was doing, who I was talking to, what I was trying to uncover. And worse, they didn't want me to find out. The next morning, I woke up to find a single white envelope slipped under my door. There was no name, no address, just my first name written neatly across the front. My hands trembled as I tore it open. Inside was a photo. Richard's wife and the man she'd been seeing. Only this time, the picture wasn't a romantic one. It was taken at a dimly lit restaurant, both of them sitting across from another man I didn't recognize. The stranger had a familiar face, but I couldn't place it. Underneath the photo, a single line was written in block letters. "You were never supposed to see that night." My stomach twisted. I sat on the edge of my bed, the photo shaking in my hands. What did this mean? What was she involved in? And what did it have to do with Richard? That's when the second photo slipped out of the envelope. It was of me, standing outside Richard's office the day I told him about his wife. The exact moment. Same outfit, same hair, same terrified expression. Someone had been watching me even back then. I drove straight to my old office, desperate for answers. But when I arrived, the building was eerily quiet. The receptionist looked at me like she'd seen a ghost. "Emma, I thought you weren't supposed to be here." "What do you mean?" I asked. Her face turned pale. "Richard told everyone you transferred. He said you left the country." My blood ran cold. "What?" Before she could say more, the elevator doors opened behind me. Richard stepped out, his expression darkening the moment he saw me. "Emma," he said softly, his tone low and sharp. "You shouldn't be here." "I'm not leaving until you tell me the truth," I snapped. "Who are those people in the photo? Why am I being watched? Why did you say I was a pawn?" For a moment, He just stared at me, his jaw tight, his eyes burning with something I couldn't read. Fear, anger, regret. Then he sighed. You were never supposed to see what you saw. My wife, she's not just having an affair, Emma. The man she's with isn't her lover. Then who is he? I demanded. Richard hesitated. He's part of an investigation. And so was I. I blinked, stunned. What do you mean? His voice lowered, barely above a whisper. They were being watched. You stumbled into something that wasn't meant for you. The night you saw them, there was already surveillance in place. You seeing them, and then telling me, put everything at risk. I shook my head, trying to process it. So, you fired me to protect me? He gave a small, bitter smile. To remove you from the equation. But it seems that wasn't enough. Before I could respond, a sharp crash echoed from down the hallway. Richard's eyes flicked past me, his body stiffening. Go, he said quickly.
What? Now, Emma.
They've been watching us both. You're not safe. But it was too late. A group of men in black suits appeared at the end of the corridor, moving fast. Richard's expression hardened. Run. I turned and bolted for the stairs, my pulse roaring in my ears. As I reached the bottom landing, I heard voices, Richard's, then a loud bang. The sound of something heavy hitting the floor. I didn't look back. I just ran. That night, I hid in a small hotel on the outskirts of London, my hands still shaking as I locked the door. I didn't know who to trust. Richard's confession had only deepened the mystery. Who were those men? Why was his wife being investigated? And what did it have to do with me? As I sat there, staring at the photos again, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. In the background of the picture with Richard's wife, a faint reflection in the restaurant mirror, someone holding a camera. It was me. I stared at that photo for hours, my reflection caught in the restaurant mirror like an uninvited ghost from the past. My hands were trembling so badly, I almost dropped it. The image didn't make sense. I had never been there that night. I had never followed Richard's wife to that place. At least, I didn't remember doing it. The more I stared at the reflection, the more the truth began to blur. It was my coat, my hair, my bag. But the lighting, the angle, it was like a memory I couldn't quite reach, sitting just beyond the edges of my mind. I whispered into the dim hotel room. What is happening to me? Sleep was impossible. My phone vibrated on the bedside table, and my heart nearly stopped when I saw an unknown number again. Against all logic, I answered. Emma. The voice was female this time, calm, crisp, deliberate. Who are you? I snapped, but she didn't answer right away. Instead, she said, you should never have spoken to Richard. You saw something you weren't meant to see. And now, they think you're involved. Who are they? You'll know soon enough, she said softly. But if you value your life, stay away from Richard. Stay away from his wife. And whatever you do, don't go to the restaurant in the photo. And then, the line went dead. Of course, I went.
I don't know why.
Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was defiance. Or maybe, deep down, I knew the only way out of this nightmare was through it. The restaurant was on the edge of Soho, quiet, expensive, the kind of place where people paid for privacy. I parked across the street and watched for a while. Couples came and went. Waiters polished glasses under soft golden light. Nothing unusual. Then I saw her. Richard's wife, elegant as ever, her blonde hair tied neatly back, pearls glinting at her neck. She was alone this time. Or, at least, she seemed to be. She sat at the same corner table from the photo, scrolling on her phone. I hesitated at the door before stepping inside. My pulse was pounding so hard I could barely hear the hostess greet me. One, please, I murmured. As I passed the bar, I could feel her eyes lift. Recognition flickered across her face. Then, just as quickly, she smiled, warm, polite, fake. Emma, she said, her tone smooth, almost affectionate. What a surprise.
She remembered me.
Of course she did. I sat opposite her before she could object. I know about the affair, I said quietly, but I also know it wasn't what it looked like. So tell me, what is really going on? For a moment, her mask slipped. The warmth drained from her eyes. Then she leaned forward, her voice low. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. Then explain it to me. Her lips twitched into something like pity. Do you really think Richard was some innocent husband? Do you think that little company you worked for was just business?
No, dear.
He's not the man you think he is. What do you mean? Everything Richard owns, every deal, every account, it's part of something much larger. Something built on silence. He didn't fire you to protect himself. He fired you to protect them. I frowned. Who's them? She laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. People who don't exist on paper. People who know how to make anyone disappear. A waiter approached, and she smiled as though we were just two women chatting over coffee. The moment he walked away, she leaned in again. They think you have something, she whispered. Something you took without realizing it. A file. An email. I don't know. But whatever it is, they're not going to stop until they find it. I blinked, confusion twisting my stomach. I don't have anything. Her expression hardened. You're sure? I nodded.
She sighed.
Then you're already in danger. Because Richard doesn't believe that. And neither do they. Before I could say another word, she stood abruptly, her face pale now. Her eyes darted toward the door. Leave, she whispered. Don't follow me. Don't come here again. Then she was gone, out the door into the night. I sat there, my mind spinning, trying to piece together the fragments. A hidden network? Secret files? Richard involved in something criminal? My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Didn't I tell you not to go there? The same female voice. This time colder. Who are you? I demanded. There was a pause, and then, someone who's already paid the price for asking too many questions.
Click.
That night, I checked every file I had from my time at Richard's company. Emails, reports, contracts. I combed through every folder, desperate for a clue. And then, buried in an old backup drive, I found it, an encrypted file with no name. When I opened it, my screen went black for a second. Then a single phrase appeared in white letters. You were warned. I screamed and slammed my laptop shut, my whole body shaking. My phone rang again, this time with no number at all. I didn't answer, but a text followed, seconds later. You shouldn't have looked, Emma.
I didn't sleep that night.
Every creak of the old apartment felt like footsteps in the hall. Every vibration from my phone made my heart lurch. By dawn, I sat in my kitchen clutching a mug of coffee that had long gone cold, my laptop still closed on the counter. The words you were warned burned behind my eyelids like a brand. But curiosity is a dangerous kind of courage, and I had just enough of it to ruin myself. I took my laptop to a small tech repair shop near Camden, a quiet place I used once before to recover a corrupted file. The guy there, Ethan, was kind and clever, with that scruffy look of someone who probably hadn't slept in 2 days. When he asked what I needed, I simply said, I found something. I need to know what's inside it. He raised an eyebrow. Encrypted? I nodded. Password protected?
Worse, I said.
It locks the system when I open it. He grinned faintly. Sounds fun. Hours passed. I sat by the window watching people rush by in the rain, feeling like I was the only person standing still in a moving world. When Ethan finally called me over, his usual confidence was gone. His face was pale. Emma, he said quietly, where did you get this file? It was from my old job, I said slowly. Why? He turned the screen toward me. Because this isn't just a file. It's a backdoor. A hidden connection to a private server. And whoever built this, he hesitated, they knew what they were doing. The moment I tried to access it, someone on the other end tried to trace me. My chest tightened. "Can you stop it?" He nodded grimly, pulling out a cable and yanking it free. I shut it down before they got anything. "But, Emma," he looked at me, concern flickering in his eyes. "Someone is protecting this data with military-grade encryption. You shouldn't be anywhere near it." "What's in it?" I asked, voice trembling. He hesitated. "Just fragments. Enough to know it's some kind of internal ledger, names, payments, offshore accounts, and one more thing." He clicked open a text preview and turned the screen. My breath caught. "Employee code 3F7. EM. Observation complete." Ethan glanced at me. "Does that mean anything?" It did. The letters EM, my initials, and 3F7, my desk number at Richard's company. For a moment, I couldn't move. The air in the room felt thinner. They had been watching me, monitoring me. I wasn't just an employee. I was part of their surveillance. I whispered, "It wasn't about his wife, was it?" Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" "He didn't fire me because I told him about her. He fired me because I got too close. Because I saw something I wasn't supposed to." He leaned forward. "Emma, you need to go to the police." But I shook my head. "You don't understand. The kind of people behind this, they don't get arrested. They erase the evidence. And the witnesses." That night, I went home and bolted the door. Rain lashed against the windows, the London skyline blurring into silver streaks. I turned on my phone. Hundreds of missed calls from unknown numbers. Messages I didn't open. I disconnected Wi-Fi, removed the SIM card, powered it off. Then, I stared at my reflection in the dark window. I didn't recognize the woman looking back at me, tired, scared, but burning with a need to know the truth. And then came the knock.
Soft.
Measured.
Once. Twice.
I froze. "Emma?" My blood ran cold. It was Richard's voice. I backed away slowly, heart pounding. He knocked again, firmer this time. "I know you're in there," he said, voice low. "We need to talk." I didn't answer. I couldn't. "Please," he added, softer now. "It's not what you think. You've made a mistake." Mistake? The word sent a chill down my spine. "You used me," I said, my voice shaking. "You and your wife. Whatever this is, I'm done."
He sighed.
"Emma, listen to me. If you have the file, you're in danger. You don't understand what you're holding. Then tell me." I shouted through the door. There was silence. Then, footsteps fading down the hall. When I opened the door moments later, he was gone, but an envelope lay on the floor. Inside was a single USB drive and a note. "If you want answers, come to the place it all started." Below that, a familiar address. My old office. That night, I sat staring at the USB drive, every instinct screaming, "Don't go." But fear has a strange way of turning into resolve. If I was truly part of this, if they had used me, watched me, controlled me, then I needed to know why. So I slipped the USB into my pocket and whispered to myself, "All right, Richard, let's finish this." And then I walked out into the rain. It was just past midnight when I stood outside Kingsley and Company, my former workplace. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, washing the London streets in a quiet, silver glow. I hadn't been back since the day Richard fired me, the day everything started unraveling. The building loomed like a dark secret, every window blacked out except one, Richard's office. That was where it began, and that was where I'd end it. I slipped around the side entrance, using the old security badge I never returned. To my surprise, the light turned green. The door clicked open. Inside, the air was thick and stale. The silence pressed against my ears, amplifying every sound. The soft thud of my boots, the faint hum of electricity from the emergency lights. As I climbed the stairs, memories flooded back. The smell of coffee in the mornings, the echo of laughter from the break room, Richard's voice calling me, reliable, trustworthy, indispensable. Now I realized those words were bait. When I reached his office, I froze. The door was already slightly open. Inside, the lamp on his desk glowed faintly, casting long, thin shadows across the room. And there, in the middle of the desk, was a small silver laptop. Next to it sat an envelope, sealed with a drop of wax. My name was written across it in Richard's handwriting. For a moment, I just stood there, heart pounding. Then I stepped inside and shut the door behind me. I tore open the envelope. Inside was a short note. Emma, if you're reading this, I was right. You couldn't stay away. Everything you need to know is on the laptop. But once you open it, there's no going back. They'll know. Be careful who you trust.
R.
I hesitated, staring at the screen. The machine was already on, showing a single icon on the desktop labeled Project Orion. I clicked it. A video opened, grainy footage, shot from a hidden camera in what looked like an office conference room. The timestamp was from 8 months ago. Richard sat at the head of the table. Beside him, his wife, Evelyn. And across from them, a man I recognized instantly. It was the man she'd been having an affair with. Only now, he didn't look like a lover. He looked like a client. They were discussing something cold, calculated data collection, surveillance, financial tracking. My heart began to race as the details unfolded. Our employees' devices are feeding cleanly into the network, the man was saying. Everything appears normal on their end. Richard nodded. And no one suspects. Not yet, the man replied. Though one of your analysts, Emma Carter, has flagged discrepancies. She's curious. Evelyn laughed softly. Curious can be dangerous. My blood ran cold. Richard leaned back, his expression unreadable. Then let's make sure she's silenced before she sees too much. I pressed pause. My vision blurred. Silenced? They'd planned it. All of it. My firing wasn't protection. It was a cover-up. Suddenly, behind me, a floorboard creaked. I turned, pulse hammering. A shadow moved in the doorway. Put the laptop down, Emma, Richard's voice said.
Calm. Cold. Too calm.
He stepped into the light, water dripping from his coat. His hair was slicked back, his eyes unreadable. So it's true, I whispered. You were using me, watching me.
He sighed.
It was never supposed to go this far. Then why? I demanded. Why me? He hesitated. Then, almost reluctantly, because you were perfect, smart enough to handle the data, naive enough to believe it was just numbers. You gave us access to everything we needed without realizing what you were unlocking. I took a step back, trembling. You used my credentials. That's why the files had my name. Yes, he said softly. And now you understand why I tried to keep you out. You were becoming a liability. My chest tightened. You were laundering money, weren't you?
Through those offshore accounts.
Using our firm's data systems to hide it all. He didn't deny it. Instead, he stepped closer. Walk away, Emma. I can make this disappear. You'll get your life back. A new job. A clean record. Just leave the laptop and forget what you saw. His tone was almost gentle, but there was something terrifying in his stillness. I shook my head. No, Richard. Not this time. His jaw clenched. You don't understand what you're dealing with. This isn't just me. There are people behind this you can't even begin to imagine. Then they'll fall with you. He exhaled slowly. I was afraid you'd say that. And then, before I could react, he reached into his coat. I flinched, thinking it was a weapon, but instead, he pulled out the USB drive he'd given me earlier. This, he said, holding it between his fingers, is the only copy of the original ledger. If it ever sees daylight, they'll come for both of us. So that's why you warned me. Yes, he said quietly, because despite everything, I didn't want you dead. For a long, suspended moment, we just stared at each other, two people caught in the same web, one who built it and one who stumbled inside. Then the sound of sirens cut through the silence. Richard's eyes flicked toward the window. Blue and red lights danced against the glass. "You called the police," he said flatly. I swallowed hard. No, but someone did. He turned to the window, just as the door burst open. Armed officers stormed in, shouting commands. Richard froze, then slowly raised his hands. He didn't look at me again, not even when they dragged him out. As they took him away, I noticed the faintest smirk on his face. The kind of smirk that said you think this is over, but it's not. When the police questioned me, I handed over the laptop and the USB drive. But as I spoke, one thought wouldn't leave my mind. If Richard was only one part of the operation, who were the others? And why did he look almost relieved when they arrested him? The phone call replayed in my head like a broken record. "You should have listened to Richard. Now, it's your turn to play." That voice, smooth, calm, chilling, didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a promise. I sat in my flat, blinds drawn, clutching my phone as if it might bite. Every instinct screamed run. But where could I go? The police had Richard. They had the files. They told me I was safe now. But deep down, I knew better. By evening, I received an email from an unknown sender. No subject line. No message body. Just an attachment. A single photo. It showed me standing outside the police station earlier that morning. My stomach dropped. Someone had followed me, watched me, and when I looked closer, I noticed a reflection in the glass door behind me, the faint outline of a woman in a cream trench coat. Evelyn, Richard's wife. I didn't even think. I grabbed my coat and ran out into the cold London night. If she wanted to play games, I'd end it on my terms. Evelyn and I hadn't spoken since the night I told Richard the truth about her affair. That memory still stung. Her shocked face, her trembling hands, the way she whispered, "You have no idea what you've done." Now, I finally understood what she meant. I traced her old address, a townhouse in Chelsea, the same one she and Richard once shared. When I got there, the windows were dark, but a faint light flickered from the study upstairs. I pushed the gate open, heart pounding, and crept to the side door. It wasn't locked. Inside, the house smelled faintly of perfume and dust, as if time had frozen. My shoes clicked against the marble floor as I moved toward the study. There, standing by the window, was Evelyn. "Emma," she said softly, without turning. "You really shouldn't have come." Her voice was calm, controlled, the same voice from the phone call. "I had to," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. "You've been following me." She turned then, a faint smile curving her lips. "Following?"
No, dear.
"Watching. There's a difference." My throat tightened. "What do you want from me?" "What I've always wanted," she said, walking closer, heels tapping against the floor. "Control." Her gaze was sharp, predatory. Richard thought he could hide from me from us.
But he got sloppy.
And you, sweet Emma, stumbled right into the middle of it. "I don't understand," I whispered. "Oh, but you do," she said. "You were the one who found the missing data logs. You were the one who questioned the offshore payments. You were the one who forced Richard's hand." I frowned. "You mean the money laundering?" Evelyn's smile widened. "Money laundering? Is that what you think this was about?" She laughed, cold, elegant, cruel. "Oh, Emma, the money was just a mask. We weren't hiding money. We were hiding people." The room seemed to tilt. "What do you mean?" Evelyn stepped closer. "The network Richard ran, the one you accidentally helped build, it wasn't just about numbers. It was about identities. Tracking, manipulating, controlling information. Every profile, every background check, every private record your team handled fed into our system." Her eyes glinted. "We used it to build digital ghosts, fake identities for very real people who needed to disappear.
Some for money.
Some for protection. And some," she paused, studying me, "some for reasons you'll never understand." I felt sick. You used me to hide them. Yes, she said simply. Because you were brilliant, and because you never questioned loyalty. My voice trembled. And Richard? What was he hiding from you? Her face hardened. He fell in love with one of them, one of the ghosts. That was his mistake. He started covering her trail, moving money off record. I couldn't allow that. So, you set him up? I cleaned up the mess, she said. And you, Emma, you became the perfect scapegoat. I stepped back, shaking. The police have the files. It's over. Evelyn smiled again, slow and confident. The police have a version of the files, not the real ones. Do you really think Richard gave them everything? Her tone softened. He loved you, you know, in his own pathetic way. That's why he warned you. My heart skipped. He what? Evelyn tilted her head. Didn't you ever wonder why he didn't have you followed? Why he gave you that USB? He wanted to keep you out of it. But you came back. She sighed, almost pitying. And now you've seen too much. Before I could move, she pressed something into my hand, a small folded note. Take this, she said. It's your only way out. Then she stepped aside, pointing to the door. Go, before they arrive. Who's they? I asked. Her smile vanished. The ones who built all this long before Richard and I existed. My fingers shook as I unfolded the note. It was an address, a storage facility in Southwark, and a code written beneath it. Orion, 01. When I looked up again, Evelyn was gone. I ran outside just as two black cars pulled up. Men in suits stepped out, earpieces glinting under the streetlight. I didn't wait. I bolted into the rain, clutching the note like it was my last lifeline. As I disappeared into the fog, one thought echoed in my head. Richard had been right all along. This was a game, one built on lies, control, and secrets. And I was still just a pawn. But for the first time, I wasn't running away. I was running toward the truth. Some truths destroy you. Others set you free. I didn't know which one awaited me at that storage unit, only that I had to see it for myself. Because if I didn't, I'd always be looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next voice in the dark to whisper my name. And this time, I wasn't going to be the hunted. I was going to be the one uncovering every secret they'd tried to bury.
If this story gave you chills, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen play out?